guys all for coming. Thank you everyone online as well for joining us. We have an exciting evening planned for everyone. So thank you guys all. I'm Matt Mulder. I'm with Keller Realty. I help run our team here with some of the wonderful people. Some of you guys may know, some of you may have met, some of you may meet tonight. So I'm excited to share all that. What we wanted to do is basically be able to outline some questions that oftentimes were asked throughout the buying process. Throughout the past 2 years, the market has been a wild roller coaster ride. And so we felt we wanted to collectively be able to share information with you all and you online to be able to figure out with what is now kind of a whole different market than what we've experienced for the past 2 years. We want to be able to outline what the market looks like now, answer questions if you were potentially thinking about buying or selling, whether it's this year, next year, the year after. We have some outlooks on projections and stuff like that. And we also just want to instill knowledge and confidence within you all so you guys know what to expect when potentially buying a home and or selling a home. And if you stick around for the whole thing, which will not be 2 or 3 hours long, it'll be a fun, short evening. Questions we'll go over what it looks like, transaction questions that we're asked oftentimes by clients. And we'll go over what the actual transaction looks like. So we're glad you're here. We're going to dive right into it. We do have prizes and drawings at the end. So if you're online as well, we have people writing down your names and putting them in a bucket for some awesome prizes to win. We have gift cards, a Bluetooth speaker. We're going to do that at the end. So we're taking inventory of note of everyone who is here and participating. So with that being said, I would love to introduce some of our guest speakers that are here online and in person. And to start with, looking at our screen here, I don't know from his angle what he's looking at, but Chris Terry is on the bottom left. He's the one waving his hand. He is with Flagstar Bank. Some of you online, some of you in person may have talked to Chris Terry. You may know him by voice, and he has been in the business well over 20 years. He is one of the top LOs, loan officers in the entire region in Michigan, and he's one of the #1 LOs, loan officers within his company and organization at Flagstar Bank. We love him. He does very good work. If you've ever worked with Chris Terry in the past, you know he is very passionate about helping and servicing clients, and that's what we love about him is the customer service portion. So, Chris Terry, welcome and thank you for being here. Next, I actually want to introduce Tim Williams. If you could just come up here really quick, say hello. Tim Williams is owner of Cedarland Home Inspections, and he is locally owned, operated. Him and his wife run an absolutely amazing company in town here. And even if you are not buying or selling a home and you need just someone to refer business to or have an option of a great home inspector in town, you are looking at, in our opinion, one of the absolute best home inspectors in Southwest Michigan right here. His cards are in the back. We'll introduce you to him as well. And we just want you guys to feel comfortable even afterward asking him all the questions in the world. And we will be asking you a handful of questions in a little bit. So thank you, Tim, for coming up here very much. Next on our list is Terry Pingle up in the top right corner. He's the one waving, and he is very important for our business because he is the one who helps us with title work. Title work is who we utilize from a service to get from point A from a contract to a closing. And we're going to ask him a lot of questions. We're going to dive deep into that. And Terry is a wonderful person. His office is right on West Midge, almost in front of Sam's Club. And we just love having them be our representation of all of our credit work. And they're locally operated right here. We also have our wonderful team here in support. You're gonna meet a lot of them here. They are here. We're gonna see them up front doing Q&As. So feel free at the end, if you got a pen, a paper, jot down notes or questions if you have them, if you feel we missed one. We are absolutely not perfect. We just strive and attempt to be more like you and be better. And if we miss something, let us know or ask a question at the very end. So with that all said, Crystal is absolutely the backbone of our team. She helped facilitate a lot of this. She has been with the team well over 10 years, and she is really the backbone. If you've worked with our team, you have not talked to Crystal, meaning you have worked with her. And I'll be honest with you guys, if you haven't worked with other places in town or other realtors, most any realtor in town knows about Crystal and knows she is our secret ammunition for how we provide phenomenal customer service. You're looking at her right there. She just got back from New Orleans, and we are excited to have her back, and she's on fire. With that being said, Crystal, take it away.
Thanks so much, Matt. Thank you, everybody that came to the office tonight here in Kalamazoo. Thank you to our online guests, our guest speakers. I just cannot thank you all enough. This is an awesome night already, just because of all of you. Just to reiterate too, if you are watching the live stream on Facebook or participating in the Zoom call here with me, drop your comments. We are watching those, and we'll make sure that we pitch any questions that we might miss or answer everything that you want to have answered tonight. So jumping right in, I would first like to interview Alyssa Marino from the Matt Mulder team. She is an awesome realtor, and I have a couple questions for her, but only if she gives me a couple finger guns. Thank you.
I understand we were doing our test run, lots of finger guns were going on.
Thanks, Alyssa. So jumping right in, I'm actually getting ready to buy a house sometime in the next year or so. What is the first step?
Well, if you're gonna buy a house, definitely I recommend linking up with a realtor that you trust, whether by a recommendation or somebody that you know, friends, family. But then a really close second step to that is also a trusted lender as well, whether that's somebody that you know through your bank or somebody that your realtor will recommend as well. I think that's very important, those two things.
Do I really have to talk to a lender before looking at homes?
You don't have to talk to a lender, but in my opinion, and I'm sure quite a few people here will tell you, it's definitely a first step that you would want to take, because you don't want to go walk through a house, potentially fall in love with it, and then either somebody else who's already pre-approved can make that offer and get that house first, or we have to find out what's kind of within your means that you can go ahead and move forward with. I think those are very important.
Okay. Well, I'm pretty sure we have a awesome lender right here on the Zoom meeting with us. Thanks again for joining us, Chris. Matt, do you want to interview Chris Terry?
Yes, so we're gonna now switch gears to a lender. So first step is we highly recommend talking to a lender, realtor, first step. Second step, let's say we're talking to Chris Terry and I'm a buyer. Some questions I might ask him is, Chris, is now an okay time to buy a home? I only hear right now that interest rates just keep going up.
So yeah, well, first and foremost, I appreciate everybody's time this evening. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Chris Terry. I'm a vice president with Flagstar Bank. And like Matt said, I've been in the business for over 20 years. One of the top originators in the country. But the answer to your question is, Matt, is absolutely. I mean, first and foremost, interest rates currently today are somewhere in the 6% range, give or take. If you take historically over the last 30 years, that's about what the average interest rate has been over the last 30 years. You have to pay to live somewhere. There is way more benefit to owning a home as opposed to renting, right? So if you think about that, let's just say, for instance, we were able to offer somebody an interest rate today of 6.25%. Rent's 100%. There's no value to renting. As long as you're comfortable, like we will find you a product, a program, a loan, and a mortgage payment and out of pocket that you're comfortable with. If you're comfortable with that, then absolutely, we should be moving forward with purchasing a property. There's way more benefits to owning than renting. And at the end, and the reality of it is, Matt, you and I have talked about this to length, that, you know, I don't have a crystal ball, but everything that the, the Fed is saying and all the indicators are, is that interest rates are going to come down more than likely sometime at the end of this year or the beginning of the following year. And the reality of it is that whoever purchases a property sometime in the next 6 months is probably going to refinance that property sometime in the next 20 to 30 months, which will lower the interest rate and lower that mortgage payment as well. So absolutely, it's always a good time to purchase a home, in my opinion. And like I said, when I started, you got to pay to live somewhere.
So let me ask a question. If I were to move forward and purchase a home and use you as my mortgage company, how much money do I need for a down payment?
Well, that's a great question. Depending, I mean, I take it seriously that we try to underpromise and overdeliver, but it's certainly reality in today's market that you could potentially purchase a home and have little to no money out of pocket. There are a lot of different products and programs out there that there's some programs, the rural development loan doesn't require a down payment. If you get some seller concessions with that, you could legitimately buy a property with that loan, zero out of pocket. There's a down payment assistance program with the state of Michigan called Michigan Down Payment Assistance, where the state of Michigan is giving the buyer up to $10,000 towards down payment and closing costs. If you put some seller concessions on that, you could potentially get into a MSHDA loan or a MSHDA program with 1% of the purchase price. So on a $200,000 deal, you need $2,000. We at Flagstar have a program that's exclusive to Michigan and exclusive to Flagstar Bank, where we're giving borrowers up to 3% of the purchase price towards, we're giving 3% towards the down payment. So we're giving the buyer the down payment. That's not needed. And then again, if we get some seller concessions, you could look at buying a $200,000 property with our program for as little as $2,000 out of pocket. I was talking with the Mulder team a few weeks ago. I rent out condominiums. I have a couple condominiums. One of them I just turned. The value on that condominium is probably $180,000 if I wanted to sell it. My tenant paid $4,000 in security deposit and first month's rent to move into that condo. I could have sold it to him for $1,800.
So I heard you say 3 different things, and I heard you say, technically, if I were to buy a home today, I could buy a home without any money for a down payment. I also heard you say I can receive potentially a down payment assistance through something called MSHDA, which sounds a little funky, but I'll trust your judgment. But what you're told me is that you're actually saying MSHDA will give me up to $10,000. And then you actually told me that Flagstar has a program where you're actually gifting money to buyers in essence.
All true. All true. Yes, absolutely. I don't want to overwhelm anybody, certainly, but I want to make sure that the options are out there and that they're at least heard of these things. But that's 100% true. I gave you 3 different programs: the rural development loan, which is specific to certain areas, but certainly plenty of areas in the Kalamazoo area that qualify for that loan have no down payment requirement. It's a 0 down loan. Second is the Michigan Down Payment Assistance Program, where the state of Michigan is giving borrowers up to $10,000 towards down payment closing costs. And third, Flagstar has a program exclusive to Flagstar and Michigan clients where we're giving up to $7,500, literally giving them the down payment. It's a 3% conventional mortgage and we're giving them the down payment. Absolutely. There are plenty of programs, Matt, that we can get clients in for little to no money out of pocket right now. And it's certainly a great time to take advantage of that.
So I'm hearing interest rates are up, but you got you, the bank, and the government is assisting people with assistance and being able to get people in a home.
Absolutely. And you're right. Interest rates are up. When we were in the pandemic, interest rates got to historic lows. I mean, you were looking at a 30-year fixed rate mortgage at under 3%, which is unprecedented and unheard of. But the reality of it is that I cringe a little bit when I hear people say, well, interest rates are up. Yes, they're up from where they were in 2020, but 6% is a very reasonable rate. And with all indicators stating that they're going to come back down sometime towards the end of this year or the beginning of next year, the reality of it is that no matter what product or program we put a client in today, we're probably going to refinance them sometime in the next 18 to 30 months. And they can take advantage of a lower interest rate and in fact, lowering the monthly mortgage payment and or lowering the term of the loan, right? So if we put someone in a 30-year fix today, it's very possible that in 24 to 30 months, we could refinance them into a 20-year fixed rate mortgage and have very little to no change to their mortgage payment.
Interesting. So you've got me real curious. I'm interested in everything you had to offer. The problem is, I don't know if my credit score is good enough. What credit score do I need if I want to buy a home here in Kalamazoo?
So that's a great question. I'm not, as you know, and our audience may not, I'm very transparent. I'm very straightforward. I'm not a bulletin board guy, but I'm more of a fine print, right? So the bottom line is that you can do a MISHDA, that program we talked about where the state of Michigan gives you up to $10,000 towards down payment closing costs. Minimum credit score on a MISHDA loan is only 640. Your rural development loan, the first loan I spoke about, where it's a 0 down loan, it can be as low as 620. So 620 to 640 is where you're going to be at the lower end of a FICO score requirement for some assistance programs. But here's the good one, Matt, that most people don't understand, right? Because depending on what media outlet you speak to, you may hear that you need a 680 or 700 credit score to qualify for any type of mortgage, and that couldn't be farther from the truth. Lenders are different, but we're one of the most aggressive that I'm aware of in the country. Our minimum FICO score for FHA financing, now this is not for assistance programs, but for an FHA loan, we can go for a credit score as low as 580. So, you know, we have products and programs that go all the way down to a 580 credit score, and the down payment requirement on an FHA loan is only 3.5%. So to put that into perspective, on a $150,000 purchase, your down payment requirement is only $5,250. And that's with a 580 FICO score.
That is incredible. My concern though is if I call you and get started on a loan today, my concern is if you pull my credit, are you going to hurt my credit? And do you guys charge to pull my credit and see if I can get a pre-approval?
We do not charge anything to do a pre-approval, and if the lender wants money up front, you absolutely just say goodbye. There's no reason for you to pay any monies whatsoever to be pre-approved. We are going to pull your credit, and depending on what that score is that's going to dictate where we're going to kind of advise you in regards to the products and programs that are available to you, but no money is required whatsoever. I think there was another question there, Matt, and forgive me, but I think I slipped on that. What was the other question?
I just wondered if my credit will get hurt if I call you to get this pre-approval started.
So the truth of the matter is that the credit bureaus expect the average consumer to have 2 to 3 credit pulls when shopping for a mortgage. The single credit pull or 2 credit pulls when shopping for a mortgage should have little to no adverse effect to your credit report. Again, the credit bureaus expect the average consumer to have 2 to 3 pulls when shopping for a mortgage. The answer is no.
Awesome. I know at the beginning of this last question I have for you tonight, at the beginning, you said this is the best time to buy a house. I've heard this term and I saw it on Facebook the other day and I wondered what your analogy of it. I heard this term that you're dating the rate, but you're marrying the house. What does that mean to you when you hear that?
Well, it's just as simple as we talked about, right? You're marrying the home, right? You're going to live there. Potentially most people are going to raise children there. You're going to be there for a long time. So you're marrying the home and you're dating your rate. And that simply means that at the end of the day, the average consumer is in their homes 5 to 7 years, but they're in their mortgage 3 to 5. And I'm going to repeat that. The average consumer is in their mortgage 3 to 5 years. So homes appreciate, you get equity, interest rates lower. You're probably going to refinance your mortgage sometime in 3 to 5 years. And quite frankly, in this environment where we are in a increased rate environment, you're probably going to refinance that property sooner than later. So you're dating that mortgage, because the reality of it is if Matt and your team go and find a consumer a property at $200,000, conservatively in 5 years, that property is worth $250,000. If you did put 5% down at purchase, you borrowed 190. In 5 years, you may owe 160. So now you have a property that's worth 160 and you owe 250. Most Americans carry some debt here and there, might want to buy a boat, who knows? But you're going to call us and say, hey, I heard interest rates are low. Can you give me 40 grand of the equity of my property so I can either eliminate some credit card debt, maybe put a roof on my property, or buy my family a boat to play on? That's going to happen. So you're going to marry the home that you're going to be there for a long period of time, but you're dating that mortgage, because the reality of it is that you're probably going to refinance it. Even if the interest rates were lower and then go up and come back down, you're building equity. You're probably going to call us to either get into the equity of the property, lower the term, or change the rate.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris, so much from Flagstar Bank. We appreciate it very much. Next, we're going to bring up Tina, Emily, Lisa, and Crystal is going to be interviewing Tina, Emily, and Lisa up here. They are agents with the Mulder team. We are excited to have them, and Crystal is going to be going over a handful of questions.
Thanks, Matt. And Chris, thank you too. I already feel a lot better about my options for getting a loan. So back to the more fun part, the home search. Hi, guys. Tina, I have a couple questions for you up first. How many homes should I look at before making an offer?
Well, that really varies. According to the National Association of Realtors, they say that you will look at an average of 5 homes, but honestly, you might fall in love with the first one you go into, or you might end up looking at 10, 12, 13 homes. It really depends on you, how flexible you are and what you're looking for.
Okay, well, that makes sense. So to help me kind of narrow that down, what should I be looking for when deciding which home to look at, which home to offer on?
Okay, that's a good question. I would definitely, there's like 5 things that I would recommend that you look at. One is your price. And that is why I think it's extremely important that you get that pre-qualification. So you're not looking at houses outside of what you can actually afford. 2, location. You can't change that on a house. So, and like Chris said, on average, you're going to be in that house for 7 years. So make sure it is in a location that you like and feel safe in. 3, are you looking for a fixer-upper, or are you looking for a move-in ready? I would definitely say, make sure you know, a lot of us might have husbands that can fix everything, or I should say partners as well. But you might fall in love with a home that might be a fixer-upper because of the price, but just be realistic. You don't want to move it out here. No, I really don't know what I'm doing fixing up this bathroom or something like that. So definitely that, and your must-haves versus your wants. If the whole reason why you're moving is because you want to be closer to work, that is a must. If you're moving because you know what, I'm starting a family, we have some friends to be in here. I'm starting a family, I'm getting married, want to start a family. Moving into a 1-bedroom condo might not be the best option for you. So look a few years ahead, where do I see myself in a couple of years? So, but you're really like, you know, I like an updated kitchen, I like something like that. Those, you know, you can be a little bit more flexible with.
Okay, that makes sense. So wants versus needs, that's definitely important. Got the location. The house itself obviously is the biggest part of this, but what is typically included in the sale besides the actual house?
So when you go through a home, anything that is a fixture that's attached to the home would be included. If there is something that would include like a built-in barbecue compared to one that's just set outside. So that if it's built in, that's coming with the house. If there is anything when you're walking through the home that you're not 100% sure of, that should be written in your contract. And that is something to never assume something is coming with that home. I've seen it where people walk through a home, fall in love, oh my gosh, this bathroom's beautiful, look at this beautiful mirror they have with it. Guess what? It wasn't permanently attached, it was just sitting on little picture hangers. They move in and all the mirrors are gone, because they thought those were permanently attached to the, bathroom. So ask questions to clarify, and, if that's something that is a must-have for you, or appliances are not technically included, but you could write that into the contract. So that's, make sure you communicate, never assume.
I'm hearing it's important to get clarification. Got it.
Yes. I don't know like where to look for you.
Emily, I had a couple questions for you too. So what should I expect for competition in the current market? Is it still crazy? Is it more relaxed? What are your thoughts?
Well, in comparison to the last year, the market has leveled out quite a bit. We are still seeing homes that are being sold for well over the asking price, and homes are still receiving multiple offers. Which is another reason why you want to have your pre-approval and your financing squared away. You don't want to walk into your dream home, just find out that it is sold the next day.
That's fair. So
What's your 10 days or 30 days?
It really depends on the price point. For homes between 150 to 250, even lower than that, we're seeing more around 10 days, I'd say. Pricier homes are sitting a little bit longer. There's other factors involved, such as location and the condition of the property.
Will the inventory tend to increase during spring and summer?
Yes, historically, yeah, spring and summer, we're going to see more houses listed. Winter, people don't like to move as much, so inventory tends to drop a little bit, along with the amount of buyers. So more buyers in the spring and summer, more inventory.
And fall as well?
Yep, fall kind of starts to taper down.
more competition. How long does it usually take before a seller responds to an offer that's made?
So your listing agent, or I'm sorry, your realtor will give the listing agent a deadline to respond. I typically like to give about 24 hours. The seller might take their full allotted time, or you might hear a little bit faster. This kind of depends. If your offer is rejected, you can have your realtor reach out to the seller and find out why, and then you can rewrite a more appealing offer if you choose to, or you can move on and continue on with the house hunt.
Awesome, thanks. Lisa, what happens after my offer is accepted?
So when purchasing a home, there are specific timelines that we have to follow. And that's what we're here for. We're here to, and Crystal is amazing with that. So first thing is security deposit. It's 48 hours after accepted offer for us to get your security deposit, and we escrow that in for you. It's just a goodwill based thing that, yes, I love the house. I'm gonna put some money in escrow, and so it can't be, any more offers. So that right there, we have 48 hours for the deposit, security deposit. The second is we have what's called a 10-day investigation period. In that 10 days, it's basically the buyer's due diligence to have any home inspections, pest, radon, any type of research within that 10 days that the buyer would like to have done. So that is the next guidelines, is that 10-day investigation period. Once that is up, then that is really kind of where the underwriting, the lender goes through and has, we kind of take a break a little bit and look, get your underwriting and get all everything in. So it's, it's a process. It's about 30 to 45 days from accepted offer, fair to say, depending on underwriting. And then the next will be the appraisal. Appraisal is one of the final things that your lender will order for you. So once that comes, and like I said, 30 to 45 days, we get our clear close and you are a homeowner.
Awesome, thanks. So
Yeah.
my offer gets accepted. I make my earnest money deposit check within 48 hours.
Correct.
And then we have a 10-day home inspection period, you said. And then that's when the bank finishes up their part and does their appraisal. If something goes wrong during all of that, what happens if I don't end up buying the house? Do I lose that earnest money, or when do is that a risk just from the beginning?
Okay, good question. So the 10-day investigation period, like I said, is basically for any reasons, if you have a problem with an inspection and we go back and start renegotiating, home inspection, or anything, pest inspection, radon, then that we go back and start our renegotiations between the buyer's agent and the seller's agent. And if for some reason we can't come to terms, you absolutely get that earnest money back. If we can't come to an agreement, so you get that earnest money back. Also, due to any appraisal, a lack of appraisal, I write my offers always contingent at appraisal at or above purchase price. So once again, if it doesn't come back to appraise at what you purchased it for, we go back to the negotiation table. If for any reason we can't come to terms, you get your earnest money back. Basically, the only biggest reason that I've experienced in my 5 years of somebody not getting is their earnest money back is basically cold feet. Sometimes it's overwhelming for buyers. We understand that in processes. That's why we are here in Bristol. It's amazing spending time with this for you. So all of the timelines and what needs to be done within that specific period. So basically, you get through it and you're like, ew, I'm really nervous. And I just don't want to do it. Unfortunately, that's not fair to the seller, and they want to keep your earnest money back. Because it's been on the market and nobody else can see it. So that is actually fair to the seller for any reason like that. Any reason also like with the lender, if something happens with the buyer's financing, something comes through, that we didn't realize, and see you're not able to purchase for whatever, or something comes back that, is not copacetic with you, even to do the financing, you will get your earnest money back. So basically, it's just going to have to be no reason of the sellers, and if we can't negotiate on anything in our timeline, we get it back.
It's basically like contract law at that point, right? Like the offer's basically a contract, so as long as you don't default, you're good to go. That makes sense. That all sounds super reasonable. Thank you, ladies. You guys want to sit down?
We have one question.
Yeah, go for it.
They kind of prices the home, how much would you put down the earnest?
Oh, good question. So there is not a specific amount of earnest money that has to be put down. Like I said, it's really good faith money. That's escrow and sits and then escrow comes back to you at credit at closing. So I basically give advice up to you as the buyer, what you want to put on that contract, as according to the price of the home. A $200,000 home, I would recommend at least $2,000. $300,000, $3,000. That's just my advice. It's not set in stone. You don't have to do that. Also, it's going to depend on if we're going multiple offer. Higher earnest money may, look like you're like a more solid and eager buyer than this. So there's just some factors in that, but ultimately that's up to you as the buyer, what you want to do. We just can give you advice.
Thanks so much. Matt, I think next on our agenda is the interview with Timberland Home Inspection.
Yes, I'd love to have Kim from Timberland come up, and Alan Wheeler on our team is going to be a buyer interviewing Tim, asking a few questions. Thank you, Alan and Tim.
Awesome. This works out well because Tim, I just gave him a phone number. He needs to go do a home inspection for me. Actually, so I'm gonna try and make sure I get all that. So, I just bought a house, Tim, from my friend Emily back there, because she's on fire this year. It's helping everybody. So what does a home inspection cost? So, typically they start out about $350. It does go up from there based on size of the house. Obviously, the bigger the house, the more we're looking at, but not significantly. We also offer radon testing for $100. And then we partner with a local company, Pest Control Michigan, or pest inspections. They charge $75, but we can set that all up with them, give them your information, so it's one less phone call you have to make. I do want to say all of our pricing is on our website, so we're very transparent about that, so you can just look it up. I do want to say all of our pricing is on our website, so we're very. So $350 for roughly, the house. Do I really need one, or can I just do it by myself? So I definitely recommend it. Anyways, so do I need one, or can I? Yes, it's always recommended to get one, you know, it's by far the biggest financial purchase in your life, and you really want to know what you're getting into. You know, whether it be major items, minor items, you know, we also go through and have maintenance recommendations. You know, we also offer what's called a home binder, so once you buy the house, you know, it kind of helps you maintain it, we send out reminders, things like that, so definitely recommend that. Okay, so I get it, it makes sense, I should just have my Uncle Dave do it. You know, so $350, you talked about some ads for, you know, pest inspection and the radon. I mean, what else is a home inspection really? So I guess the nerd definition of a home inspection is it's a visual, non-invasive inspection of the home. So any roof that's safe to walk on, we get up on the roof and look at it. If we can, I usually try to get a drone out, get pictures of it that way. We check, you know, foundations, plumbing, electrical, furnace, any appliances that are going to transfer with the house. You know, windows, doors, we're checking all that stuff. As entertaining as it is watching Mike Holmes, you know, when he goes into the house and tears the ceiling out, that says, oh my gosh, your home inspector missed this. We can't go into homes and do that. Few tools that we do use to help us. Every inspection we do use an infrared camera, checking mainly for moisture issues. You know, we use the moisture meter, like I said. When possible, I do get the drone out if I can't get on the roof to get pictures of that, chimneys, things like that. So when you're done with the home inspection, does it get a grade like a So this is kind of a misnomer in the industry. There is no pass fail. You know, we're not the grim reaper that comes in and shatters your dreams, says, nope, sorry, you can't buy the house. So what we do is, you know, find issues with the house, report it, you know, you get a comprehensive report, describing everything, and it's up to you, your comfort level, whether you're comfortable with things that were found. You know, whether you want to move through the house or not, but yeah, there is no pass fail status, so. So kind of up to me a little bit. So my experience tells me you're gonna find problems. So what happens in problems after holidays? See, I like to say every house is different. We do new construction home inspections, you know, there's always something. So there is no perfect house. Like I say, we give you that information. You get the report. We always send the report to the agent too. So, and that's where their strength comes in. You know, they can look over the report, walk through it with you, say, you know, okay, it's reasonable to ask for, you know, the seller to take care of this. You know, some of these other things are just maintenance items. But yeah, you can definitely walk through your agent with that. They can help you with what would be reasonable to request and what might not be reasonable. Okay, so the sellers don't necessarily have to fix everything. The sellers are under no obligation to fix it. Again, that's where your agent comes in because it's a balance, you know, if the roof is shot, probably nobody's gonna buy the house unless they either fix it or, you know, make some type of concessions, but again, that's where the agent comes in and their sites. So I know there's a lot of old houses out there, especially in Kalamazoo, and codes on those changes, so what if a home's not up to code? So again, with the code thing, basically if the house is more than a couple of years old, it's not gonna be up to code. Codes are constantly changing, updated every year. Different municipalities have different codes that they're working under. There are certain things we expect to as far as safety items, things like that. But again, it's just not practical for a house to keep up to codes. For instance, the National Electric Code's updated every 3 years. So it would really be impractical that every 3 years, tear into your walls, you know, add outlets where they need to be added, things like that. So it's not expected that the house is going to be up to code, especially if you're looking at a 50, 60, 100-year-old house. So, cool. So bonus question that's not on here. How long does the inspection take? So typically I've been working through now, so the actual inspection itself, usually somewhere between an hour and 15 to 2 hours, depending on the condition of the house. We always say you're more than welcome to be there for the home inspection. A lot of times people get bored out of their mind after about a half hour. So usually what we recommend is, hey, get done about this time. You can show up. We walk you through the whole house, show you everything we found, answer any questions you might have. And then, like I said, we do get the report out to you the same day. So I know springtime coming up, summertime, some days we are booked out. I know Lisa alluded to, you have 10 days to get that done. So some days we are booked 7, 8 days out, but we do get that report to you same day. So we'll go with the information you need to go over with your agent. Cool, awesome, thanks, Tim. Do you have any questions for Tim?
What if someone is like pinching their pennies for their mortgage? What if they don't want an appraisal? Will the mortgage company still give you?
The inspection?
Or, yeah, sorry, inspection.
So I'm sorry, what was the question you threw me? So,
With the inspection,
Yeah.
if you decide that you don't want to have it, will they still give you the mortgage?
I believe so, I do know they're, yeah, they will. The question, somebody's probably gonna shake his head, yes. He doesn't care about the home inspection necessarily, but the appraisal is a different aspect. Sorry. Yep, nope, I know what you meant.
The home inspection is technically optional. It's certainly, it's certainly encouraged, but lenders, that's not required by lending in any way, shape or form.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks, Tim. Thank you. I'd like to thank the Mulder team. So great presentation here. Thanks for inviting us. It was pretty fun.
Thanks, Tim. I think too, in my experience, like while the home inspection is optional, it's for the buyer, the buyer's home inspection. And the bank's appraisal is really more for the lender, in my opinion, than for the buyer. Like if there are condition requirements for the appraisal, that's for the loan program. So it's really the home inspection that's gonna make sure that you, the buyer, are happy with the home, with the condition of the home. The bank might not care, or they might care depending on the loan program. So it's kind of two different things there. So next up is getting to the closing table. Pam, thanks for joining us. Alan, we've got you there. And we've also got Kelly on the Mulder team as well, who is on the Zoom here with me. Pam, I had a couple of questions for you up first, and one of the guests in the audience there asked as well. So basically, how long does it typically take going from when you make an offer to actually purchasing it? Was that answer, did I hear 30 days earlier?
So it's gonna depend on your loan type. So typically, most conventional loans, you close in 30 days. If it's cash, you can close in a week, 2 weeks, or any time frame. If you're using a government loan like FHA, VA, rural development, that's gonna be closer to 45 days. Also, it kind of depends on the seller's situation. I've had instances where my clients could close in 30 days, but the seller's building a house, but my clients were willing to wait for them for that to be finished. So there's a lot of factors that determine that, but typically 30 days.
Okay. And how soon, like when will I be able to move in?
And again, it's really dependent on the seller again. So is the house vacant? If it's vacant, you get keys at closing. Sometimes they're moving to another house and they can't, once they're gonna close on their new house after their old house, then you might have to give possession for a couple of days. It just kind of, again, depends on the situation and the house. But when they're vacant, I know that they'll be able to move in right away.
Okay, that's totally understandable if they're still living there, that they would need some time to move out. But after I buy the house and we've closed on it, if they're still living there, what happens if the house gets damaged during that delayed possession?
So our contract does protect you from that. So the seller is supposed to give over possession of the house in the same condition that you saw it. So if there were issues, that would be on the seller's responsibility.
Sometimes if it's gonna be a long time, let's say 2 weeks to 4 weeks, because of some situation, we can do an addendum to asking the seller to hold back some of their proceeds and escrow. So that will be held by the title company, let's say $2,000, for example, and you would have to then go in the house, make sure everything's okay and sign off, and then the seller would get the funds back.
Okay, thanks. Alan, this is my favorite question, and you are my favorite person to answer it. Couldn't I just represent myself and not pay a realtor commission? Do I really need to hire a realtor?
So sure, the short answer is no, you don't need a realtor, right? I'll mix it up. The good news is we're talking about buyers here in a buyer seminar, right? So in Michigan, almost exclusively, the seller always pays the commission to the realtors. So the seller pays the listing agent, the seller pays the buyer's agent. So you aren't paying anything to the realtor, the seller's paying that to the realtor. The great thing about being represented though, and having someone who's a professional, right, that we do this every day, as opposed to if you wanted a haircut, you wouldn't go have to ask your mechanic to cut your hair, it would look like mine. But you want to make sure that somebody's representing you with the legal documents. All of our documents are through GCAR, Greater Kalamazoo Association of Realtors. They've all been vetted by attorneys so that everything is good to go. And we're talking about likely, unless you guys win the lottery and buy a new Lamborghini or something, the largest purchase you're ever going to make in your life. So, for us, we do this. I don't know how many hundred and some times we did this last year, but Crystal does it for all of us. So she makes sure that everything's buttoned up and ready to go. She yells at us in the background and everything else. And then she's nice to you and everybody can see. So yeah, it's important to have a realtor represent you and make sure that you're being someone who's responsible for supporting you in your best interest, because the seller is not necessarily going to have your best interest in mind. Right?
Okay, that makes sense. So I guess I'll hire you. What do I actually have to pay out of pocket? What are closing costs?
So I always have a pretty good guideline of what closing costs look like. Generally, I default to people like our title company and our lender because they have a much more refined process of determining those. But there's a lot of different fees, like, so in your closing costs will be, your down payment will be in there, you've already put some earnest money down, so that comes out of what you have to bring to the closing in that aspect. Your title insurance will be there, so that when the title company does the check to make sure there's no liens on the home, it's like the homeowner has a policy, the buyer has a policy, your title insurance will be in there. Documentation fees will be in there, loan origination fees. In general, as a rule, I would say, I tell you it's about 2 to 5%. Somewhere in the 2 to 5% of the sell price of the house will be what your closing costs add up to.
Awesome, thanks. Kelly, you're here on the Zoom meeting with me. Could you answer a couple quick questions too? I'm curious, what if I already have a house that I need to sell before I can buy a new one?
That's another great question. A lot of times our buyers do have a house to sell unless they're a first-time home buyer. So their pre-approval in that case does come with a contingency to sell. So it becomes a factor of timing, and we make sure that when we list their home that they're selling, that we give what Pam was talking about, some delayed possession. In that case, we work with the title company and the other parties that are involved to make sure that we time it out right. Typically, we try and do a back-to-back closing so we can close in the morning on the house that they're selling, and then in the afternoon, the funds would be available for the home that they're purchasing. And that delayed possession would give them a little bit of time to be able to move out and then move into their next home.
Awesome. That actually sounds pretty cool. So I want to buy a house, but I might get this sweet new job in HR. And I was wondering, if needed, how soon could I actually sell a house after I bought it?
There's a lot of different factors that go into that, depending on how you purchase the home, whether you purchased it with cash and what type of financing that you had. And it also, you have to make sure that you speak with your financial advisor when it comes to capital gains. If you're selling your home before 2 years, you could have penalties for capital gains. So you'd want to get with your agent to make sure you understand from the agent and the lender what your penalties might be if you do sell early.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I am definitely feeling a lot better about knowing what I'm going to be getting into here. Speaking of peace of mind, our last guest speaker tonight, also joining us on the Zoom meeting here, is Terry Pinjol from ATA National Title Group, and Matt has a few questions for Terry.
So I have some title questions. I'm in the midst of buying a home. Terry, I got a question. I heard my realtor say that you guys need to do a title search on the home I'm buying. What does that mean?
Matt, the title search is a standard part of the home buying process. A search is going to uncover any title issues that could prevent you from having rights to the property. What we do as a title agent is we go through all the public records and find any problems that are going to be associated with that property that could cause you legal issues.
So let me ask you this question. If Consumers Energy had a power line running down my property I didn't know about, would it show up on your title search?
Hey, as long as it's recorded in public records, yes.
Interesting. All right. Well, I guess with that being said, do I have to use you? Do I have to get title insurance to buy a home? And I'm getting my mortgage through Chris Terry at Flagstar, but do I have to get title insurance?
In almost every case, yes, title insurance is required. It's a standard requirement on a real estate transaction. The nice thing about the policy is it's being paid for by the seller and not the buyer. That being said, if you're working with a lender, your lender is going to require a second policy to protect their interests, and the buyer does pay for that.
That is awesome to hear, because one of my questions was asking who pays for it, and what you're telling me is I don't have to worry about it if I'm buying the home.
Yeah, the seller's going to buy it for the buyer.
And I'm guessing that comes out of proceeds if I'm a seller. So what are different ways if I want to take title? What are different ways I could take title in our area here?
Well, you could take title in several different ways. It really depends on who's receiving the property. Is it a single person, a married couple? Is it father and son, a business, whatever? Most likely your lender is going to help make that decision for you. They'll help you with that.
So I am curious. I'm obviously halfway through the process of buying this home. And the other day, I got an email from your company saying for me to wire money to your company for the closing that I don't have for another week. Does that sound right? Should I be concerned at all in our market that I received that email from what looks to be you guys?
Well, I certainly would be. You know, the real estate market is one of the most targeted segments that for fraud and for hackers. It's a big ticket item, so they're watching every part of the transaction. And if they've infiltrated your email, they may wait to the last minute and say, hey, buyer, we're changing the wiring instructions, send them here instead. Just don't do it. Always call your realtor. You know their number. Call and say, did you send this? Should I believe this? Just be diligent and careful.
So Terry, what I've heard from you, what I've heard from people like Kelly, what I've heard from people like Alan, Chris, everything, is call someone that you know and trust in their profession to lead to the advice that we need in order to buy or sell a home. And those are people like you, Terry. Those are people like Chris from Flagstar that we believe and we trust in. And second of all, thank you, Terry, for all your help. And to be quite honest with you guys, and online, that question, the very last question about wire fraud, it's a really big deal in our market right now. There are closings happening every single day, hundreds of closings every day. And hackers have infiltrated not our systems, but they have infiltrated to be able to look and act like a title company, sending wire instructions to potential people that looks legit as all get out. We've all seen the emails or the targets that are, you know, I'm from this place and we need money in order to give you money. And it's like, all right, that's a no-brainer. We don't do that. On the flip side, these are emails that look like they are coming from a title company that you are planning on closing with. And hackers are tapping into figuring out ways to send you invoices to rewire your actual funds other places. So we bring all these questions up. Most importantly, we do want to open up the floor for Q&A. I would love to have Alyssa come up here and join me and ultimately just open up any questions you all have for me, Matt Mulder. Alyssa is wonderful on our team here as well. And we can ask any agents on our team. They can be even a lender question, maybe not, or yeah, Chris is still there. Title question, whatever you guys have. Who has written down a question that they're willing to ask? Go ahead.
It'd be for, the lender.
Yeah.
With the MISHDA, what's the catch? If they're gonna give you money?
Chris Terry will unmute it. What is the catch with MISHDA? I'm gonna let you answer that.
So, from your question, I mean, the catch with MISHDA is that the money's not free. So the state of Michigan is going to give you up to $10,000 towards your down payment and closing costs, and then they're going to place a lien against the property, which that money, it's an interest-free loan, so you don't have to pay interest on the 10 grand that they give you, but you will have to pay it back when the property's been sold and or financed. There are some income limits for that loan. There's also a household credit and income limit on that loan. But you know, the money's not free. They're giving it to you, but you're going to have to give it back at some point. Now, with that being said, as I said earlier, MISH is not the only zero down or little out of pocket loan that we have, right? So the rural development loan has zero down payment requirement. And with seller concessions, you could potentially do a rural development loan with no money out of pocket. And then our loan, we give you the money. We don't ask for you to pay it back. It's not required to be paid back. Again, that's up to $7,500 towards down payment closing costs. The bottom line is that most of the assistance programs are going to have income limits, right? You're not going to be able to get free money if you're making, you know, $200,000-$300,000 a year. They're going to have some income limits. They're not crazy income limits. But you know, you're not going to be, you know, at $150,000 annual income and get free money from the state of Michigan from Flagstar or any other entity for that matter. But with the regard to your specific question, the MISHDA catch, if you will, is that the money isn't free with MISHDA. You're going to have to give it back. But again, it is a zero. It's a zero interest loan, if you will. I mean, it's given to you, you got to give it back. No interest.
And that is an absolutely great question. And what he said is, to my knowledge, absolutely all true. And there are absolute zero down loan programs. Rural development is a geographical. And if you want to use areas, think of like east of Sprinkle Road is eligible for rural development. Kind of think of west of 9th Street. Those of you familiar with that. You can almost think of south of South Portage and anywhere south, almost down to Indiana, is already eligible, rural development. You want to buy a house with a pole barn, you can do it zero down. 10 acres, doesn't matter. The kicker is, and they're really good about it, is that they even, when he says income restriction, it doesn't mean you have to make a certain amount. It is the opposite. They want to make sure you do not make too much money to get it. And so even rural development, they keep raising the income limits, and there are differences for single versus married and all of that stuff. Those questions, honestly, Chris is an animal. He does not sleep. He actually has a family, some of the most beautiful family kids on earth, and yet the guy hustles like an animal. So if you got questions on that, and you want to say, all right, if I want to do rural development zero down, am I eligible? Likely are, most people are. They just don't ask that question because they don't know. And that's why we're here. That's why we're doing this, is to give that information for free. And he's an awesome one to ask. The MISH is a government program, as he said, is gifting it, you gotta pay it back at some point. The zero down is legit zero down. The Flagstar program that they just rolled out is a gift program, that is a legit gift. So there are like so many different options, it's just like being aware of them, knowing which ones are the best, and we trust him, we've known him for a very long time. And that is the reason we believe he puts people in the absolute right loan product that is the best for that person. So I appreciate you asking that question, very good.
And hey,
Any
Matt,
other-
and just to touch base, I just pulled it up just for fun, just to kind of give you guys an idea. The MISTA income limit for the entire Kalamazoo County is almost 104 grand. The MISTA limit for Kent, which is Grand Rapids, Kent City, Kentwood, Spencer, and Wyoming, is almost 108. So it's not like these programs are like, you can only get it if you make $35,000, $40,000 a year. That's not what we're saying, but there is in fact an income limit. So in both Kent and Kalamazoo counties, just pulling those two up, you're at over 100 grand.
And I think even rural development might be, no, we don't have time to look it up, but it might be 140, 50, 180,000 for a combined couple, but not. Love to hear your question.
So the 3% that Flagstar would give you, could you use that for closing costs?
Chris, could you use the 3% gift for closings?
No, the 3% that we're giving you is specifically for down payment. So what that program is it's 3% of the purchase price towards down payment up to 7,500, whichever is less. With that being said, 3% of 250 is 7,500. So a $250,000 purchase price is going to give you a gift of 7,500. So essentially, with our program, it's not zero down. It's no down payment required, right? So we're giving that down payment. So on a $200,000 purchase price, 3% down is 6 grand. Your loan amount on that deal is 194. So your purchase price is 200, your loan amount is 194, and we're giving you that $6,000. Now, in regards to, and I don't know if you want to go there, Matt, or not, but in regards to closing costs, you can do what's called seller concessions, where you're essentially asking the seller to help pay closing costs. So I may say to Matt, if I'm the buyer and he's the seller, hey, Matt, I'll give you 200 for your property, but I want you to pay $3,000 to Chris and Flagstar towards my closing costs, which now takes your closing costs from say maybe 8 grand to 2 grand, and then Flagstar covers the down payment. Now you're buying a $200,000 property with $2,000 total out of pocket.
And then isn't there a down payment assistance program too?
Through Flagstar or Mishta?
I was working with a different lender and they had a program where you could finance the closing. You can get a separate loan for closing.
So asked if there is a separate loan for closing costs or down payment assistance.
I mean, there's always different things. Like the truth of the matter is that we like to, the reality of it is that 97% of the lenders are doing all of the same stuff, right? And we package it up in different boxes and call it different things and try and make it shiny and special. I'm guessing that that lender is probably trying to make seller concessions look a little bit different than what they really are, because essentially you are borrowing your closing costs when you're doing seller concessions. So the reality of it is, and Flagstar's, I'm not saying we're not guilty of this. We create programs and call them names and say, hey, this is our destination loan. And it's just kind of a shiny package that tries to give some exclusivity to something that really isn't all that exclusive. So I'm guessing that what you're referring to as a lender was we're putting a bow on seller concessions.
Great question, great answer, Chris. The train is here, so let's try to wrap this up, but we want to get through as many questions as possible. What are the questions? I mean, these are really good questions. You got the best people, in my opinion, in Kalamazoo County and Southwest Michigan to ask right now. And these are phenomenal questions. What are some other ones? And I know a lot of financing. The thing is Chris is available. I don't want to say 24/7, but he seems to be available 24/7, and I would highly encourage anyone to reach out. The guy, call him, cell phone, email, whatever. He is there. I'd love to hear your question.
I'm just wondering, first time doing home buyers for us, we're actually gonna be moving out of state, where would we start?
Moving out of state,
Yes.
what state?
Illinois.
So not a big sales pitch about a company, because even we can spin everything any which way. Our company though is, Keller Williams as a whole, is the largest real estate brokerage in the United States and world. And it is owned and operated by one individual out of Austin, Texas. With that said, actually, our office manager owns and runs a team out of Chicago. So we partner, a lot of times we'll refer deals out. If you're like, oh, I'm moving to, Marathon, Florida, and I need an agent down there. We simply have a database of agents throughout Keller Williams. We typically actually in our database can see how good an agent they are. We usually call their office manager, find out who's a good fit for the areas you're looking in and that knows the school districts and areas. And we try to partner you in aligning with someone that we believe will be a good fit for you. So we really start by teaming you up with a realtor to talk to there in that location. And the reason I say that is because even if some people are moving here and they're like, oh, I need to find a apartment to rent. We don't around here handle a lot of rental stuff. In Chicago, it's a whole different market. So that's what most realtors do. And we don't touch it. So every market is different. And so with that said, I would highly encourage to just ask one of us. And all we need to know is either a school district or a town or county you're moving to. And with that also being said, if it's someone like Flagstar, oftentimes they can loan in multiple states. And so with that, it'd be like us teaming you up with a good realtor and seeing cross-checking with Flagstar to see if they can write a note in either Florida, Illinois, wherever it may be. And honestly, right now, off the cuff, there are a lot of people relocating in and out. And I've seen even in the past month, we've had clients, multiple clients go to Carolinas, Iowa, multiple of the Carolinas, one to California, and I don't know, I don't want to confidently say anywhere else, but even that's just in the past 30 days, we've seen 5 people move to 5 different states. So with that said, we do it and we do it a lot. And so just reach out to one of us, ask us, we'll set you up with someone that we trust. Because your value might be solely on schools. It might be solely on you want a neighborhood that has a pool in it. And so we just try to figure out who the best person is for you. It's a great question. Awesome question. Yes.
I've heard people when they buy homes, get a mortgage, that it's sold. The mortgage gets sold to another lender. What is the concerning points of that and how often can that happen?
I could answer that, and my belief is Chris could answer that a little bit better.
Yeah, so certainly you're gonna sign some paperwork that says that your loan can be sold at any time. It's not so much something to be concerned. From a shameless plug, we don't sell hardly any of our loans. So when you're doing a loan with Flagstar Bank, we service 98% of the loans that we originate. The only really, to be, transparent, the only real concern you have is that if you don't get notification of it, and it's not really comfortable, right? You're making, anywhere from say $1,000 to a $3,000 or $4,000 payment. And I think that creates a little bit of just uncomfortableness, right? You're writing a fairly large check. Like Terry said, there's a lot of fraud going on in the world right now. I think it just creates a little bit level of uncertainty. There's nothing you can do about it. I can tell you again that we don't really sell any of our loans. You may want to ask the lender, is there a high probability that you will? Some will be honest and some won't. Most brokers, almost all brokers, are going to sell your loan. There's not much to be really concerned about as long as you may have to just want to do a double verify, right? Because you're going to get notification like, hey, ABC Mortgage just sold you to DEF Mortgage. You may want to call ABC and then DEF and say, hey, is this legit? Which is just, an inconvenience at best, but there's not a whole lot that you can do about it. Even on our paperwork, we will tell you that we can if we want. So for instance, if I have a loan with Matt Mulder at $200,000 and somebody wants to give us $300,000 for it, we're going to sell it, right? So, that's just making dollars and cents. But it is something that you may want to ask. And like I said, most brokers will sell you. Shameless plug, we won't.
I agree with that, and in all of my years and even my own mortgages, that I would say that was the main hiccup was simply the transition of the paperwork. Because sometimes mortgage companies will send stuff in unmarked envelopes. And so unfortunately, I'm guilty if you guys spam mail me tomorrow, but I'm kind of a guilty one. I handle my mail over top of my garbage can and figure out what I need and what I actually don't. So if unmarked stuff, I rip up in the garbage. So that is a great question. Christy answered it very well. In that nothing should ever change with your mortgage if it's written the way it should. And then the reality is it's just a hiccup of sending your mortgage payment to a different place and then having to reset up and establish all the other stuff. But once it's sold, usually it doesn't keep getting sold.
I was gonna ask if the
Yeah.
change and all the interest rate and all that.
Never, yeah, it does. Yep, unless it's on a variable rate. Those are really amazing questions. I mean, we might just invite you to Everson somewhere we do. Yes, yeah.
For the, if you needed to use the down payment assistance program, is that 30 years or can you do a 15-year fix program or?
Chris, would you like to handle that? And basically on a down payment assistance, is there a length of time or how does that work in the mortgage if there is one?
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear everything. Is that in regards to just term?
Yes, the down, if you needed to use the down payment assistance, is that 30 years? Or
Yes, I mean, yeah, it's very, yes, the down payment assistance programs are not for any other term other than 30. There are no prepayment penalties on anything that we originate. So if you were, the reality of it is that I very rarely, I don't have any financial gain in the program that you get, right? So I don't care whether you get a 15, 20 or 30-year mortgage. I get paid off of a loan amount, period, right? And so the reason I say that is because I typically, although the interest rate could be potential, it will be lower if you got a 15-year as opposed to a 30-year. There's no prepayment penalty on anything that we originate. So I always recommend that the client take the 30-year fixed rate. I can tell them what the 15-year fixed rate is, and they can pay the loan off in 15 years, but the required payment is less. But if your question is can I get a 15-year on the down payment assistance program? The answer is no, but I can tell you what the 15-year payment would be, and you can make that payment to your 30-year mortgage and pay off 30 and 15.
Fantastic question. Great answer, Chris. Both over the top. Any other questions? All right.
With this last question, it's probably the scariest one. I bought my first house 20 years ago before the market crash at 160, sold it 7 years later at 30 grand loss. What does the market look like this year with the recession at 70%?
Great question. So Chris started off his intro saying now is the best time. The past 2 years, buyers were paying a premium for homes to get into them. Down payment assistance, getting stellar concessions, negotiating after a home inspection. The past 2 years has been unheard of almost. The whole market is completely not flip-flopped, but the market right now is that there are home inspection addendums going on. There are buyers asking sellers for concessions and sellers agreeing to that left and right. The market you're talking about ended about 6 months ago. Therefore, likely, I do not have a crystal ball, likely today, if you buy, you're a lot better off likely that you will not lose than if you had bought a year ago today. So the market spiked during COVID, it went sky high in a nutshell, and every home inspector lender in town will tell you that. And appraisals were working, home inspections, we would not negotiate after home inspection, you would just throw the deal in. 25 offers to choose from, you pick which offer you want, and the seller moves on. This market right today is we have 25 showings and 1 offer. offers instead of one showing and how you get 25 offers. So today's world is truly the best time from the standpoint of you are able to negotiate with a seller. The prices have leveled and corrected, and therefore, with that being said, if something happens economically completely out of our control, I can't answer that question beyond that.
But it's stabilized.
It is, in my opinion, right now, it is as stable as it's gonna be for quite a while. And rates, like Chris said, if they're 6% today, I bought my first home in 03, I was at 5.5, and no one brought up interest rates in 2003 at 5.5. So if they're half point bit higher and everyone's complaining, it's just a fact of what gas prices do. Yeah, they're up right now. You're marrying the house, you're dating the interest rate. You can refi later. Most of them will waive other certain, fees and costs. So likely buying now, I do agree with Chris. I do encourage people to look at it this year because right now prices have seen the level. Rates are not going to keep shuffling up or down or shouldn't. They might fluctuate a little. With all that said, you're actually able to negotiate technically with most sellers right now. That was not the case 9 months ago. 9 months ago, if you entered a purchase agreement with anyone in their right mind, they would tell you can do a home inspection. It is your choice. If you ask for anything, plan on them just terminating the contract and moving to the next offer. Now they do not have those offers sitting there left and right. Great question. Any other questions, Jacob?
So I'm hearing you say like the market that we're coming out of was just kind of this wild west, right? Like offers were coming in over asking and waiving inspections and all concessions are starting to come back on the table. Like how do you see that working like with inventory and stuff right now? Like, do you see inventory starting to come back a little bit, or like, I know Alan had talked about, seeing inventory still be kind of low. So like, what kind of confidence should we have for these buyers, getting their ducks in a row, basically? How do we prepare our buyers as best we can to get their ducks in a row, quote unquote ducks in a row, I guess, and listening to everybody talk, like giving you guys advice and making sure you get those pre-quals and so you're kind of ready to fight right away. Is stuff moving quickly?
I would say most inventory that is good quality in our area is still moving if it's in good condition and priced right. And if everyone waits until June of this year when the flowers are blooming, they probably missed out on a portion of the market. And with that said, a lot of people that wait until June to list their home and the buyers wait when the weather is better to go shopping, most of the time sellers end up wanting a premium for the home because there's more activity, even though people are not ready, willing, and able. Typically, we see inventory climb and we see prices climb around the June time. So great question. Best time is now and be prepared. Collect the data like you're doing today. I'd like to roll into some prizes. And Alyssa, would you be willing to do a giveaway for everyone who attended online or in person? Oh, no.
I can either.
We got two people. Yeah, if you sign, we got your name in there, I guess. So Miss Alyssa.
Then we'll rip it off and. A Bluetooth speaker is one of them. A $50 gift card and then a $25 gift card to the name.
Oh,
All right, you set that there for a second, that's okay. All right, Matt.
okay.
First one is Heather Bradshaw.
Oh, ah,
10. Elizabeth. Good point. And last one. Michael, he was on. Yeah. Press on
He,
here.
he had to jump off the call. I'll let him know.
All right.
We'll mail it to him.
Thank you
Thank you.
everyone for attending. We are gonna stick around for a few, feel free to use the restroom or down that way, home inspector out that way. Feel free to stick around, drink any wine you'd like, bottled water, food, whatnot, and feel free to grab any of us if you guys have questions. We're so all here. Thank you.
Thanks everyone who joined us on the live stream. We appreciate your time tonight. Thanks for helping us. Everybody in Kalamazoo there, all of us, just thanks so much. I feel a lot more better being prepared to buy a home in today's market. If there's anything that we missed, did we forget something? Drop us a line anytime. Shoot us comments here on the web. Have a great night.
Thank you, Crystal. Awesome job. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Andy.
Thanks, everyone.